Hey there, all you greasers. Who feels like talking about a little music? I got some for you, kids. I got a little bit of cherry poppin' daddies. Talking about a little bit of you two. Might even have a story about the great Sugarfoot Moffat. And I'll tell you all about it on the other side. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. For the record, Gwendolyn is into the Artie Shaw version, okay? She went and she listened to Begin the Begin. Now, if you've been following along, I talked a little bit of big band over the last couple weeks. And Begin the Begin is, of course, my favorite big band song. So Gwendolyn, longtime listener, went and listened, and she likes the Artie Shaw. Our old friend Jay, he likes the Frank version, Frank Sinatra with the vocals. The Frank version, I think, mostly arranged similar to the Artie/Glenn Miller version of Begin the Begin. So kudos to you two and others who have gone out and listened to that music. I do appreciate knowing that, because I don't know what effect I really have here with this show. I don't know what it does for people, but if it sends you out and you check out some new music, that's a good thing. Now, James V., our old friend James V., longtime supporter of the program, he, like me in the past week, has become somewhat obsessed with the tune Dangerous by Liz Stringer. Now, I mentioned that on the last episode. Liz Stringer, Australian singer-songwriter, plays a bit of kind of a rock vibe, kind of an Americana vibe. Good old Liz, and her tune, Dangerous, is just a really great song, man. And when I talked about it last time, I'd only listened a little bit. I listened to her whole new record, which is great. And I liked that song right away, you know, and then I kind of went off it and did the episode, et cetera, et cetera. But I went back and, you know, James V. Did a little post on my Facebook page. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I noticed that he shared that tune with his followers, which inspired me to go back and listen a little bit more to Liz. And yeah, man, I've had that tune on repeat. Dangerous by Liz Stringer. If you have not checked that out, do so. And I went and I gave a deeper listen to the Weezer, the Van Weezer record. And I've kind of been going back and forth between two tunes for the whole week. It's the Liz Stringer tune and The End of the Game by Weezer, which has just such a great rock and roll riff, man. And the beginning of that song is kind of an homage to Van Halen, certainly. The Van Weezer album, which is not a album of Van Halen covers, but is an album of originals that are kind of inspired by the 80s hard rock vibe. And The End of the Game is pretty much, yeah, definitely my favorite song on that record. And it's a throwback to Van Halen, at least in the beginning. So there's got this great riff and some like harmonic kind of stuff going on like Eddie Van Halen used to do. Rivers Cuomo and Weezer, man, thoroughly underrated musicians, okay? And then the rest of the song is not really a Van Halen song, but it's got that vibe. And it's got that riff and a great chorus. And so I've been going back and forth between Liz Stringer and Weezer, those two songs, Dangerous and The End of the Game. And I appreciate all you guys and gals checking out that music when I talk about it, man. Warms my cockles to know that if nothing else, maybe I'm giving you some new tunes to check out. And I think it's important not to get stale, man. I spent like 20 years after about 1993 getting stale. Buy new King's X records, buy new Galactic Cowboys records, you know. Archers of Loaf while they were hanging in, Face to Face, that kind of stuff. But I had kind of my favorites, you know. And I was in a little box with the music, and I think it's important to come out of the box. And I've been forced out of the box by performing, picking up cover gigs and stuff. It's like you got to go learn these tunes, which forces me into different angles, forces me to learn new music. And that's helped me kind of come out of the boxes I was in. And now I'm trying to do that for you. So it warms my cockles to know that you're listening to some of this stuff. That's cool. And thanks for telling me about it, okay? It's nice when the listeners interact. Got me thinking about some of the kind of cool interactions I've had on socials. The socials get a bad rap these days, and for good reason, but sometimes cool stuff happens. And it's nice when the artists I talk about let me know that they know I was talking about them. So I tag them, in these social media posts. And you got to be somewhat careful about that because it's easy to look like you're kind of profiteering, right? Like you're using these artists' names to pull people into your show, like you're not really giving legit shout outs. You're just tagging people hoping to grab an audience or hoping that they'll share it or that kind of stuff. And then that audience will come to you. That's kind of the philosophy behind a lot of interview podcasts, by the way. Now, most of your interview podcasts, including when I was doing interviews, were legit and genuine and motivated by just sharing the message of the people, But one of the ways you build an audience is you bring in higher and higher profile interview guests, and you hope that those guests share your links with their vast networks, with their audiences of thousands. And I've had people do that to very little response, actually, in some cases. And I've had other people with great followings not share the links at all. That's just part of being a podcaster, man. That's part of the game. But I don't tag these people and talk about these people with the hope that their audiences will jump on my show. I do it, and I talk about these people because I'm genuinely into the music or into whatever they're doing, and I'm trying to share it with folks. So it's nice to know that folks are picking it up, but it is also nice to know that the artists I'm talking about sometimes get on it too, like Whitehorse, for example. A few episodes back when I talked about the new Whitehorse album, I tagged them, and they actually did me the courtesy of retweeting, Thank you, Whitehorse, for sharing my show with your audiences, and I hope that brought some of the people in to hear what I was saying about your record, which I still love, by the way. And I've had some other cool stuff happen, Sometimes you get just a little like from somebody. Like I was thinking of a few years ago, I posted up a photo on the Instagram. Was me playing live a Sarah show. And among the likes for that was none other than, no less than, Sugarfoot himself, man. Sugarfoot Moffett, better known in the music world as the drummer for Michael Jackson for 30-odd years, man. Played through all the big Michael Jackson era, man. He played everything. Sugarfoot, man. I don't know how he got hold of this Instagram post of mine, through the tags, no doubt. I don't know if he's a Regal Tip player, but I mentioned Regal Tip sticks in that post, and maybe that was the connection. But how weird is it when you get a notification from Instagram that says your post was liked by Sugarfoot, man? That's kind of as big as it gets, man. Michael Jackson's drummer is liking my post. That was cool. And one time, a couple summers ago, I was up north in Timmins, Ontario, playing the Great Canadian Kayak Challenge with Sarah, the Sarah Band, with Denny Boy and Ken the Zen. And someone took a photo before we went on. I think we were on stage getting ready to go, and somebody snapped a photo, and I don't remember who. But I'm doing the shocker, right? Now, this is, of course, a family show. Don't want to get into the shocker, but the shocker is a hand gesture known to Steel Panther fans. And again, kind of like the line in the Mark Lehner book from last week, I ain't going to go into it, all right? Somewhat filthy. But I'm doing kind of the shocker at the camera, and Denny Boy's there. And it was a funny photo. And I'm on stage behind a drum kit doing the shocker. That's cool, right? And so I posted up on Twitter. Here we are, Denny Boy and me, doing the shocker. And we drank the Steel Panther with us, doing my best. Styx Zadinia. Styx is, of course, the drummer from Steel Panther. And doesn't he pick up on the tag and like the tweet and actually reply, "Well done, sir." So thank you, Styx Zadinia, for noticing me doing the shocker. And it's fun when that sort of stuff happens, man. And if you are in a band, if you are an artist right now, it's a hot tip, kids, for you. If people tag you, if people comment on your stuff, acknowledge that, man. Especially if you are a band trying to build an audience, okay? Sarah Smith has built legions of fans forever out of her capacity and ability to interact with them, both online and in person. When you build those connections, man, you get fans for life. So don't sleep on that, kids. If you're an indie band and you drop a record or a single or a video and people acknowledge it, acknowledge back, okay? It'll warm their cockles, kids, and nothing guarantees lifelong fandom like warm cockles, okay? Last week, the great Danny Dicchio posted up a video of him scoring the first official goal in Toronto FC history. And I watched that on TV, and it still gives me goosebumps, man, when you watch on the YouTube the video footage of Danny D putting that ball in the net for the first time for Toronto FC. Danny Dicchio, the legend, man. Oh, Danny Dicchio. You know that song. We all sing it in the 24th minute, man, because that's when he scored that goal. Lo, these many years ago. Danny Dicchio posts up the video on Twitter. Hey, remember this moment? And what a moment it was. And so I commented on that, and Danny Dicchio liked my comment. Warms my cockles, man. Nice to know Danny D knows I'm alive, man. Interacting with the legends, you know? And there's been a bunch of that stuff over the years, and that's fun. Social media is toxic. Social media make you crazy. Social media make you want to shut it down every time you open it up. But once in a while, Sugarfoot gives you a little nod. And Danny D, man, and the White Horse. Gordon Corman. When I talked about who is Bugs Potter, Gordon Corman gave me a retweet. Good on you, Gordon Corman. And it's nice to know the listeners are listening to stuff I'm saying. And I do so much appreciate your feedback, man. James V, Gwendolyn J. Everybody who writes in to tell me that they're listening to the show and listening to what I'm talking about. I do appreciate it. But Gwendolyn likes the Artie Shaw. I'm down with Artie. And now is my chance, I guess, kids, because I don't know how much more swing we're going to talk about. Maybe some, maybe none. I don't know. But now's the chance to talk about Cherry Poppin' Daddies, okay? Now, you know the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, right? You know the Zoot Suit Riot. Cherry Poppin' Daddies, kind of the first name in the 90s swing revival. And for the record, all right, I'm coming out with it now. My go-to karaoke song is Zoot Suit Riot by Cherry Poppin' Daddies, okay? But you gotta be careful with the Zoot Suit Riot, okay? One time I was in the tropics, down at a resort, and I'm gonna do Zoot Suit Riot. Karaoke night came, all right? The people gathered around, you know? That tropical air smells like the beach. Everybody's had a few libations, you know? It's after dinner. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do the Zoot Suit Riot, because that's my go-to track, kids. But you gotta be careful, all right? Because I danced so hard through the intro, and I threw up a high kick that almost tipped me over. And I was out of breath by the time the first verse came, all right? So it took me a while to catch up. So if you're ever gonna do Zoot Suit Riot at the karaoke night, need you to be careful on that intro, okay? Keep it chill so you still got your breath when the verse comes, all right? My wife still laughs about this all the time. Me throwing high kicks and then out of breath when the first verse starts, you know? I'm not a front man yet, but I would kind of like to try to be. So it's important to know these things. You got to keep your breath, man. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way with the Zoot Suit Riot. But I love the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, man. Now here's the thing, all right? First name on the team sheet for the 90s swing revival. But the thing is, people poo-poo the Cherry Poppin' Daddies for kind of exploiting the swing thing. As if there was some band who noticed that swing was having a moment and got together and put out a bunch of swing. Not what happened, okay? And Cherry Poppin' Daddies is kind of pigeonholed in a box as this swing band that they never actually were, man, okay? Now, Zoot Suit Riot happened late 90s, okay? Cherry Poppin' Daddies been around 10 years almost by the time that goes down, and they were not exclusively a swing band, okay? Cherry Poppin' Daddies were a punk thing, were a funk thing, were a ska thing, all right? They played like funk ska with horns, okay? And once in a while, they would drop in a swing tune, okay? So they had a couple records out long before Zoot Suit Riot came along, but here's what was going on. People would come up to the merch table after the shows and they'd say, hey guys, which one of your records has the most swing on it, okay? Now, this is a mostly indie band going around. Cherry Poppin' Daddy's very suspicious of the labels, okay? Why? Because the labels want to put you in a box, man. The labels want you to be one thing. And the driving force behind Cherry Poppin' Daddies is a cat called Steve Perry. Not that Steve Perry, different Steve Perry. And he did not want to be pigeonholed, okay? He wanted Cherry Poppin' Daddies to be many things. So they were ska, and they were funk, and they were punk, and they were a little bit swing, all right? But the labels are all like, no, like you got to pick a thing, man. You got to be a ska band, or you got to be a swing band, or you got to be one thing so we can market you. Cherry Poppin' Daddies didn't want to do that, and so they stayed away from the labels, but they're putting out records, and people want to know which one's got all the swing on it. And so they get it in their heads, not stupid guys, man. They're like, people want the swing, let's put out a swing compilation, all right? So they took all of the top swing tunes that they've recorded, maybe added a few more, put them all on Zoot Suit Riot, the swingin' hits of the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, all right? Not a swing band, all right? Just a collection of their swing tunes. And then this weird conversions happens, okay? So they got this record, and it's doing great for an indie release, you know? Like, they're moving a lot of units here. And there's a bit of an interest happening in swing music because the Swing Kids movie came out, like early 90s, 93, 94. You remember that one, right? The Hitler Youth who, in the underground clubs, are dancing to the swing music. Kind of like what I talked about with the bone music in the former Soviet Union, right? This is clandestine. This is underground stuff, man. They're Hitler Youth people, but they're also resisting the whole Nazi thing and being rebellious kids by listening to the swing music, man, in underground clubs. And people are getting kind of wind of that music, early 90s. And then the movie Swingers came out, like 96, whatever it was, 96, 97. Also put the focus on the swing music. Now, a word of warning, kids, if you go to the Google and you put in Swingers movie, you might get back something you're not expecting, okay? Tread carefully, not safe for work. So there's beginning to be a re-interest in swing music off of some of these music, late 90s. And then along comes the Cherry Poppin' Daddies with their swing collection, Zoot Suit Riot. And they're moving a lot of units, and then a record label kind of gets hold of it. All right, it's been out for a little while, a few months, doing well. And they're like, the record label's like, let's put this out. I mean, let's put a push behind this record that we can give you, right? I forget which label it was, doesn't matter. Signs Cherry Poppin' Daddies to a 2-record contract. Zoot Suit Riot's already in the bag. Let's spruce it up and put it out. Okay, let's push it a little bit more with the label behind it, because swing is hot right now. And so they do that, and then sales begin to blow up, man. And then the label comes along and says, let's market and release the track Zoot Suit Riot as a single. Cherry Poppin' Daddies don't want to do that, man. Why? Because it costs money to release a single, okay? It's got to go to radio, that costs money. It's got to be promoted, that costs money. It might be a video, that costs money. And the thing about it, kids, is the money that the label gives you for anything, they expect to get back. A lot of times they don't get it back. You know, you get, let's say, $100,000 to make the record and the video and whatever, just as an arbitrary figure. Label expects you to pay that back out of royalties, okay? So you're a band, you're not making any money until you hit the $100,000 mark, you know, and you pay back your advance, right? And Cherry Pop Daddies are like, nobody's going to play a swing single on the radio, man. There's no way on earth we're going to recoup the money that the label's going to want to put into this, that we're going to just have to pay them back. It's going to eat out of whatever money we're already bringing in. Long story short, they wind up releasing Zoot Suit Riot as a single, and you, dear listener, heard it on your radio, okay? You know you did, late 90s, because the thing blew up. It was a big single, and I'll tell you a secret, kids. Cherry Poppin' Daddies, fundamentally, at least in the public consciousness, a swing band from the upper Northwest, sells 2 million copies of Zoot Suit Riot, man. 2 million copies, that's double platinum, kids. Big record pulled out of a moment in time. And then Cherry Poppin' Daddies, they're on a 2-record deal with this label, man. So Zoot Suit Riot does its cycle and they do big touring. Like 300 dates a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like big touring, big festivals. Cherry Poppin' Daddies were a hot ticket for a minute there, man. And they come back off of doing the touring on Zoot Suit Riot, and Steve Perry's looking around like, we're not a swing band. We're not a swing band. Everybody's expecting us to be a freaking swing band. And I've been out for like 500 shows over the past couple of years being a swing band that we are not and do not want to be. So we're going to write a new record. It's not going to be a swing album. It's going to be a Cherry Poppin' Daddies record, which means it's going to be a little bit swing, but a little bit ska, a little bit punk, and all that stuff that we do. And they released the record, Soul Caddy. And crickets, man. This isn't Zoot Suit Riot. What is this? There's like distorted guitars in it and stuff. What is going on here? This is not Cherry Poppin' Daddies, but the thing is, it was Cherry Poppin' Daddies, man. The real Cherry Poppin' Daddies. Not the swing compilation, but the real thing that we do. And the album tanks and Cherry Poppin' Daddies break up. Fundamentally break up. Now they returned some years later, doing the Cherry Poppin' Daddies thing, even put out another swing record. But, you know, most of the records that they've put out have been different flavors, different styles, right? They did like a Caribbean-influenced record recently, kind of a reggae vibe. They're all over the map, the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, all right? And labels don't dig on that. But I love the Zoot Suit Riot record because I'm a swing guy, man. And Zoot Suit Riot is my go-to karaoke song. So if we go do karaoke sometime, kids, I'll do the Zoot Suit Riot for you. But I had to take a break from that record for a while. Because when we were living in Japan, which was just around the time this came out, maybe a couple years later, some Japanese friends of ours took us to a park, southern Kyushu, which was 2 or 3 hour drive, man. And we couldn't really communicate, not a lot of talking going on. So they said, bring some music. Okay. We brought some music, some of which was the Zoot Suit Riot CD. And then they put that in the old CD player in the Kuruma Mazda and play that thing on repeat for like 6 hours, it felt like. So anytime I hear that record, for the most part, I'm back in that car in Japan, driving to that park where we all met and had a lovely lunch. You know, Japan is so beautiful, man. And I miss those days and those people enormously. But, you know, you can hear a song too much and you can hear a record too much. And that's kind of what happened with Zoot Suit Riot for me. Now, it's better now because it's 20 years later. You get that kind of out of your system. And I do love that record. And if you're into the swing and you have not listened to anything beyond the song Zoot Suit Riot, do so, okay? Because this is brilliant stuff. All right, these arrangements, these tunes, this musicianship, freaking outstanding. This is a great record, man. And you can turn up your nose saying it's exploitive of the swing scene. Or they kind of jumped on a little bankroll there when they had the opportunity. Do that if you like. It's still a great record. But tread carefully, okay? The thing about Cherry Poppin' Daddies is they are, they come from a punk ethos, all right? That's why the name of the band, all right? They were just kids when they were putting this thing together. And they're into things like butthole surfers. And they're in this world where you try to gain a certain amount of notoriety from having a name that might make your parents cringe, okay? Now, they set the bar extremely high on cringy names. Steve Perry has described the name Cherry Poppin' Daddies as the cross they have had to bear ever since. And they were banned from playing certain venues for having what could be construed as a thoroughly obscene name. Remember when Bare Naked Ladies came out, kids? Remember what a controversy Bare Naked Ladies was? Late 80s, whenever that was. They were banned from places. I remember seeing this on the freaking news. Controversial band banned from playing XY venue for being called Bare Naked Ladies. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Of course you can. Well, Cherry Poppin' Daddies ups that ante, substantially, all right? After a while, you just kind of get used to the name, and it's just a name, like Foo Fighters or anything else. It's just a name, right? Dave Grohl hates the name Foo Fighters. He's like, if we had known we were going to turn into a thing, I never would have called it something so stupid. But after a while, it's just the name, and you don't think about it anymore, right? Great deal of controversy around Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and the lyrics to these tunes are pretty freaking street, man. There's a lot of grit happening there. Some F-bombs from Mr. Perry. Talking about some heavy stuff, some political stuff, some social stuff. This is a punk band, man. Talking about a lot of that stuff. So if you're expecting a happy-go-lucky swing record, you get a little bit of that. You also get some freaking heavy stuff, man. Lyrically speaking, all right? It's going to punch you in the face a little bit, so tread carefully, all right? Be prepared for that. But I love the swing. And I love the Cherry Poppin' Daddies record, and if you haven't listened to anything else except that album or that tune, Zoot Suit Riot, do not be under the misconception that this is just a swing band, all right? Much more going on here. So if you're into kind of underground music, if you're into the ska, if you're into that kind of stuff, distorted guitars and horns, go and listen to some more Cherry Poppin' Daddies, man, and they were thoroughly entertaining to watch. Never got to see them live, but man, what a band. But I've seen video, I've seen the YouTube stuff. And they appeared on Letterman when Zoot Suit Riot was really happening, right? And just great. Steve Perry doing the freaking splits. He's actually wearing a Zoot suit. Yeah, they milked it. Not denying that they milked it, okay? But you gotta milk it when you get the chance, kids, all right? This is a fleeting thing for most bands, if they ever even get the shot. So you gotta milk it a little, and they did. Very entertaining. Go look up Cherry Poppin' Daddies on Letterman. Watch them do Zoot Suit Riot. Freaking great, man. And that's a great album, and that's a cool band. So if you're looking for something very different, go listen to the whole catalog of Cherry Poppin' Daddies, man. You might find something very, very interesting that you like. Got a new thing I'm doing. Maybe. It's not a habit until you do it a few times, I don't think, Last weekend, I had the place to myself, which is a rare thing these days. My poor wife is chained to a desk at home. It's rough for her, but last weekend she managed to escape for an evening. And so I sat myself down on the couch in front of the big TV, thinking, what am I going to do now, man? I haven't left the house in a year either, you know? So I thought, why not watch a little live music, man? I got one of these smart TVs, plugs me right into the YouTube, all right? So let's check out some live music. Let's have a little fun with that. And so I pulls up U2, right? U2 live, Oakland Memorial Coliseum, 1987, kids. Now, I've said before that I feel like the 80s is a decade that I missed. Should have soaked it all in, man. And up to a certain point, I suppose I did. But I missed the real kind of pop culture of the 80s, right? Now, there's a couple reasons for that. First reason is I was mostly in the Christian church world, so I was not really out there amongst the people too much. I was in this kind of social bubble, man. And we did not interact very much with the outside world, okay? So I missed a lot of what was going on. And then musically speaking, like I missed all the movies. I missed all the stuff, man. So this great kitschy 80s culture that we all look back upon so fondly, and with our heads kind of tilted to the side and our eyebrows raised, missed most of that, all right? So that's extreme nostalgia for me, and a certain sense of longing to experience that for real, even though I was there at the time. I missed it. And musically, I missed it because I was so wrapped up in the metal scene, right? And so even if I was exposed to something like U2, I didn't really go for it because I was more interested in listening to the new Cinderella record, man. Or the Megadeth record that came out. Like when you're a teenager, you tend to be kind of tribal about these things. And metal is a very tribal thing anyway. That's a serious community, man. And in those days, it felt a little bit like Metal Against the World, you know, because if you were into Poison, and let's not get into semantics here. Let's not get into whether glam metal is metal or not. That was the world. And if you're into that stuff, it's like you had to identify your people. And it's like, okay, this is my community. Because everybody else thinks you're nuts. So I was so into the metal that I was not even really willing to entertain anything that wasn't that. Because I was a teenager and I was stupid, all right? So for those reasons, I kind of missed the 80s. And now as I'm getting older, I feel intense nostalgia for the 80s, man. And so let's go back and try to capture some of that as best we can. You know, YouTube is great for that. And here we have U2. The real U2. Now, U2 is still U2 and always has been and always will be. You know, different kind of versions of U2, right? So you have like the discotheque U2, and you have the rattle and hum U2, and you have the beautiful day U2. But for me, kind of U2 is Bono with his long straight hair, you know, and the Edge with that hat and his ponytail, you know, with it wrapped up, you know what I mean? U2. And it's, for me, thoroughly nostalgic. I'm saying a lot of thoroughly today. For me, it's nostalgic to go back and watch U2 when they were U2, Joshua Tree U2. And I know they're still U2, and I'm not articulating this well. But for me, they are emblematic of an 80s that I missed, okay? And so I go back and I'm watching 1987 Oakland Memorial Coliseum, and this is fun because U2 was huge at that point, right? And they had been around a while. And they had that passing of the torch moment. You know the one I mean? 1986. Well, okay, they had announced themselves at Live Aid, right? Everybody talks about Queen at Live Aid, but U2 arguably stole the Live Aid show. And they had been out for a bit then, but it was like at Live Aid in front of the millions around the world. U2 really announced themselves, right? They became the name on everyone's lips at Live Aid. Then 1986, Amnesty International is celebrating its 25th anniversary. And they say, let's put a big tour together, you know? Let's get U2 involved. And they did. And they asked a bunch of people. And so at a certain point, this big tour happened, like 6 dates or something like that, with some huge artists on it. Stingman. What kind of name is Stingman for a person? And the last 3 nights of the tour, Sting decides he's going to put the Police together. Whoa! Police had been heretofore arguably the biggest band on planet Earth, but they had not played together since Synchronicity, 1984, all right? That tour, when, the Police were peak. And so, last 3 nights of this tour, Sting is going to get the band back together. Going to do 3 Police shows. And nobody really knows it at the time, although they suspect it. This is the end of the Police, because those cats couldn't even be in the same state as each other, let alone the same room, Like a band that just did not get along. Da-do-do-do-da-da-da-da. So, last night of the tour, stop me if you've heard this story, kids. Last night of the tour, 1986, the Police closed the show, man. And on their last song, they bring up Bono to sing with them. And this is Bono. And you kind of look at him and you go, oh, what are you doing, man? He's got like a bowler hat on. There's video of this. You can go watch. He's got a hat on and his hair and whatever, and he's Bono. And he sings with them, and it's great. And then they hand their instruments to U2. And this is seen throughout history. This is seen looking backwards as a passing of the torch moment. U2 has not started recording the Joshua Tree yet. But they've released some albums that have been big, and they've been growing, and they've had big songs, and they've announced themselves at Live Aid. And then here we have like a coronation. We have the Police handing their instruments to U2 to jam out a song. And the Police did not play again. That was it. That was the last show. Until Sting's wedding, somebody's wedding, like 1990. They played a few tunes at the reception. How's that for a wedding band, kids? And then they didn't play again until like the 2008 World Tour thing. So that was fundamentally the end of the Police. The biggest kind of pop rock band in the world, arguably. And they hand their instruments to U2, and they're about to begin recording the Joshua Tree, which is the record that will make U2 iconic, right? The Joshua Tree is one of the great albums ever recorded. And I feel as though With or Without You is arguably the greatest pop rock song ever recorded. Now, I'm going to take some heat for that, but With or Without You is next level, man. It's wonderful. It's brilliant. And I had the luxury of covering that song with Sarah on the last Euro tour. And that warmed my cockles, even though I didn't do it justice. So I'm watching this show from 1987, all right, Joshua Tree Tour. The record is out and it's blown up. But U2, it's an interesting moment in time because it's still just 4 cats on the stage, man. 4 guys playing their instruments. And there's a certain rawness to it. There's a certain energy to it. There's a certain lack of sophistication to it, if you can imagine. I mean, they're playing a football stadium, right? Tens of thousands of people. This is a huge show. Don't get me wrong. And they are, at that point in time, probably the biggest band on planet Earth and would remain for probably decades. They are U2 at that point, but they are not quite U2 at that point. It's weird for me to say that because they've been playing huge shows for years and they've been a huge band for years, but they've gone next level, but they're still kind of just 4 cats playing rock and roll, you know? It's really interesting to look at. And then you watch the show. There's no, as far as I can tell, there's no tracks happening, you know? There's no extra stuff going on. There's nothing superfluous. Just 4 dudes playing the show together. Just them and their instruments. And the Edge, you know, he creates so much soundscape, you know? He's the Edge. That's his thing. But there's nothing extra. It's very raw in certain ways. This is a band in the process of becoming the biggest band in the world. One of the biggest bands ever. You know? Who compares? The Beatles, obviously. the Stones, if you want to talk longevity. But after that, what's a bigger band than U2? And what we're seeing on this show is U2 as I see them in my memory. Bono with the long hair. He's 27, kids. He's a kid. And I remain amazed by these artists who create their most powerful and compelling work so young. It's amazing. And here you see Bono in all of his glory. And it is a glory, kids. I know a lot of people want to roll their eyes at Bono now because he seems to be more a political spokesperson and an agitator than a musician. I get that. This is 1987 Bono. He's like 27 years old, and he is a terrific frontman, dude. People don't give Bono enough props for his voice and his performance. But here we have peak Bono, and it is great to look at. And you look back and you're like, this dude is fired up. This whole band is fired up. There is something so special about U2 in those moments, in that era, in that time. The Joshua Tree just beginning to blow up. And they didn't know at that point in time. This is the fun thing about history, man, because you watched this moment in time, and I don't think they know at this point. I mean, they know they're a huge band. They know that they're arguably the biggest band going. But I don't think they know at that point how big this is going to get. These 4 kids from Ireland, you know, who it's said could barely even play their instruments when they started this thing as teenagers. Here they are. And I don't think they know yet how big this is going to be. But you get to watch them in this moment. This kind of raw moment. And it's like a 2-hour show. And I watched every freaking second, man. And I'll tell you that the song I'm most nostalgic for is New Year's Day. I don't even know why. There's just a piano tone on that is so 80s to me. There's something very profound in that song. And musically, it's poignant and it just gets me. And when I hear that, I'm transported. It's one of the reasons that I think I like The War on Drugs, because they have similar kind of keyboard tones running through some of their songs, and it harkens back to me. It triggers a nostalgia just a little bit. Now, I like The War on Drugs despite that. I love The War on Drugs despite that, but that's one of the connections, I think. So go on the YouTube and do that, man. Call up U2 Oakland Memorial Coliseum, 1987, the Joshua Tree Tour. It is really compelling to look at. Great show. 4 dudes playing instruments. Great songs. Bono, an underrated frontman, dude. I did see U2 many, many, many years later when they were doing whatever it was. I saw them at the Sky Dome, still the Sky Dome to me, and it was a great show, man. But it, for me, it's that U2 of 1987, you know, or even a little bit before that. That to me is the U2 that I think of, the U2 that I remember, the U2 that I see in my mind. And that was a cool show. And so I'm going to watch more shows, all right? One of the things I'm going to do is watch some shows and, you know, maybe I'll report on them back here. From back in the day, you know, go back in time just a little bit for all you nostalgia fans. All right, going to get out of here soon, kids, but hey, I wouldn't be me. I would be derelict in my officiousness if I did not give you some new music to check out. All right, now the first place we're going to go is Grace Fire, all right? Grace Fire, friends of mine from Germany who have one of the great band names I've ever heard. One word, Grace Fire from Germany. And I got to know these cats when I was over there playing with Sarah. I think the first tour we went on, we were playing the Weißes Ross in Immeldorf, Germany. That's the White Horse, kids. In Immeldorf, Germany, which is a whole story unto itself. And these 2 girls were at the show who Sarah knew from previous trips, which turned out to be Nicole and Diana from Grace Fire, and they're awesome. And then you fast forward a couple of tours and we actually played a show with them in what city I cannot remember. Stuttgart, maybe, something, I don't know. This great rock club was awesome. And I really like those folks from Grace Fire, Diana and Nicole and Annika and Simon, the bass player. They are wonderful people. Great rock and roll band, man. Just straight up riffy, good old fashioned classic rock and roll style. And they're working on a new record, and they dropped a single just this week called Black Bull. So if you're into a banging kind of riffy rock and roll tune with a female singer, they are a great band. You should check out Grace Fire. And you know, when their record drops, kids, it's just possible that your humble host might have a cameo on it. Stay tuned for that. Go listen to Black Bull by Grace Fire. They're terrific people. Really like that band. Love that band's name and really like them as people. And I hope someday I'll get to go and play another gig with Grace Fire, man. Want to point you to the new single by Jizzy Pearl. Do you know Jizzy? Jizzy is, well, you know, if he just toured under his own name, he might get banned from places too. Cherry Poppin' Daddies and Bare Naked Ladies and Jizzy Pearl. Jizzy was the front man of Love Hate, still is, I guess, when they do the Love Hate thing. Love Hate released one of the great unheralded records of the early 90s, Blackout in the Red Room. A freaking awesome record, and they got caught in the vice of time, kids, because that came out like 93, something like that. It's a hard rock, looks a little bit like a hair metal, but isn't record. Very raw, very kind of bluesy hard rock stuff. But you think Cinderella when I say that. It's not like Cinderella. Great guitars, great drums, great voice on Jizzy, and Blackout in the Red Room is a freaking awesome record, all right? And you should go listen to Blackout in the Red Room, and you'll find that song on the John Huff podcast, referenced on the podcast playlist, because we've already talked about it, all right? Jizzy dropped a new single this week called Soul Mama, and that's just another big old guitar rock song, man. So if you're into the kind of sleazy guitar rock stuff, go listen to Jizzy's new tune, Soul Mama. I dig it. It's cool. Rocks. And I'm going to point you at this band called Nestor the Band. Nestor. And our old friend Jay put me onto this, and I know almost nothing about this band because there's almost nothing to know. Might be from Sweden. I don't know. This band, Nestor, dropped a single called 1989. And I think you know where I'm going with this, kids, because it is a throwback hair metal tune. It is an 80s rock and roll song, man, called 1989. And the video is very funny. You know, the guy's kind of dressed up a little bit like Steel Panther. And there's a bunch of 80s references in it. It's a very funny video. So if you want to laugh for 4 minutes and rock, go listen to 1989 by Nestor the Band. And I've done some research. I've looked around. I can find nothing. I can find pretty much nothing on who this band is or where they come from. But they wrote a great song called 1989, and it does transport you right back to that year, man. The keyboards and the electric guitars. Sounds a bit like a Whitesnake tune or something like that. Maybe a Nelson tune. How's that for a reference, kids? Nelson. I love this tune. It's really great. And they have another one out that's fun too, and the videos are fun. Like, they're doing a little bit of a Steel Panther thing, playing on the nostalgia, not doing what Steel Panther does with the lyrics, all right? Steel Panther is an exaggeration of the sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle. This Nestor band is just doing kind of the sound, but they're playing on the nostalgia too, lyrically. But it's really great. So I'll put that on the playlist if I can. And go check out the video for 1989 by Nestor. Go check out Jizzy's new tune, Soul Mama. And go listen to the Grace Fire kids, all right? Great band and friends of mine. And that's it. Here we are, sneaking up on the old hour again, kids. It's like clockwork, you know? Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please do me a favor. Drop by your Apple or wherever you listen to the show. Wherever it'll let you rate me, please drop me a 5-star. Drop me a little review, man. And if you do, I'll read it out on the show. How do you like them apples? it does help the show get noticed and find an audience if people are rating it and talking about it. If you like these episodes, share them, tweet them out, and you can count on your humble host acknowledging that. Put them on the gram, put them on the Facebook, wherever you can share them. I certainly do appreciate it. Go listen to the music. Drop me a line. Let me know what you're listening to. I want to hear it. Tell me about your celebrity encounters on social media. If Stick Zadinia ever commented on anything you tweeted, I'd like to know about it, man. Gonna go. Hope you're doing okay. Sun is beginning to shine again, and it's warming my cockles, kids. So until next time, stay cool, and I'll check you later. Thank you once again, gentle listener, for taking in today's show. If you want to know more about the program, go to www.john-huff.com. That's JOHN-HUFF.com and click on podcast. You can also find the show on Facebook at The John Huff Podcast. If you're an Instagram person, you can find me at JW_Huff. If you're a Twitter person, you can find me at JWSHuff. No matter where you listen to the show, please do me a big, big favor and leave a rating and review. Preferably a positive one. That's all the time we have for today, but I'll be back very soon. Until then, keep your wits about you and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. Hey, I believe it.